Good morning, everyone. Chris Conte here with Tim Takis. He's an attorney in elder law. We've been taking your calls all morning, talking about anything that you have questions on in terms of elderly care, elder law. We have Lucy, who's been on line one for a while. We're going to get to her now. Lucy, good morning.
Good morning, y'all.
Where are you calling from?
I am calling from Nashville. In my age, well, I'm just older than dirt. Leave it at that.
All right.
Mr. Dukakis, I spoke to you back in 2007 and 8. I met you at a nursing home where a little fiasco was going down, where an elderly friend of mine, who his only crime was that he was poor, had passed out from a medication error, pooped in his pants, and the state decided to put him into conservatorship, and he was off the planet 6 months later. But anyway, you were very gracious with your time, and I want to thank you again for having a conversation with me that night when, you know, the police and the media and everybody else was at that nursing home and things were running around because they deported him out of the county because he was poor. But anyway, you're in good company there with Mr. Conte.
Well, I hope so. So far, so good.
Yeah, so
You're just throwing the compliments out this morning.
Absolutely.
and I just want to say that because Chris Conte is a very sensitive person, so I could think of no better of a host than him to host something like this. But anyway, here's my questions. I got like 3. I don't expect you to answer these. I just want to put these out here. Maybe you could do a show on them.
All right.
All right? And you can correct me if I'm wrong if you have time or whatnot, but starting back in around 2003, there was a healthcare lobbyist group that went around the country, and at that time, about 3 states, it was only legal where you could force somebody to sell their IRA if one of the spouses, you know, you had to sell it all and leave that money open if one of the spouses needed to go into a nursing home. And so a lot of people thought their IRAs were protected, but in about 3 states, I think Colorado was one of them, you know, they could force to sell for you to pay off your medical debt to a hospital.
Yeah.
Well, this lobbyist group went around the United States, and they got all 50 states to pass the same law. And from what I understand, part of the Healthcare Reform Act, better known as Obamacare, has stopped from being forced to sell IRAs, not just IRAs, but your home. Because one of the other things that we're doing is if you had a certain percentage of equity in your home, you were forced as an old person, if your spouse went in or you, to sell that home to pay this hospital bill to settle your debt. So, you know, what was amazing to me is about that same time, Big Pharma had cut back on production of a lot of cancer drugs that they were using for seniors, and they drove up the price of cancer drugs to the roof. So that met at the same time, and it created a shortage, and it was just unreal. So a lot of these seniors, you know, a lot of elderly people are a lot of the poor people in this country.
Yeah.
That's what the Widows and Orphans Act, better known as Social Security, was supposed to protect. Well, these people were being displaced like crazy.
Yeah.
And, you know, we all know that Section 8 housing is gone now, by the way. So that's one thing I want to know if the Healthcare Reform Act.
Let's start there.
Now, let me just go ahead and finish. You know, I would like Mr. Dukakis to come back and do a whole show on that. But the Healthcare Reform
Well, I'll have to ask Channel 5 about that one, about whether or not.
So let's start with her question there about, can you be forced to sell IRAs and maybe stocks and, you know, pension money, things like that, if you have to pay for some kind of elder care or, you know, some kind of estate? How does that work?
The short answer to that question is that is no, unless in some instances you're trying to qualify for public benefits.
Okay.
So let's say that, you know, you're in a nursing home and you have a house and you've got, you know, $50,000 in IRAs, and you're looking for the state Medicaid program to cover the cost of your care. The state Medicaid programs is going to say, Tim, you know, you've got $50,000 in IRAs, you know, and in order for you to qualify for these benefits, you've got to spend that down to $2,000. You know, that's just part of, you know, that just basically, no one forces you to do that.
Right.
You know, it's my choice, my decision. You know, do I want to try to qualify for the state Medicaid program, in which case I'm going to have to do something with this money. Now, the state doesn't force me to. It just says, well, here's the criteria for qualifying. Now the rules are a little bit different when we're dealing with spouses. Maybe a spouse has an IRA and her husband is in the nursing home. There are protections there, for those IRAs. The state doesn't require you to sell your house. Now, in the future, if you're an unmarried person and you go into the nursing home and Medicaid's paying your bill, you may have to. The state has a right to recoup what they paid out, but that's only for unmarried people.
Right. So I have a question for you.
Sure.
About debts and dying.
Yeah.
What kinds? Obviously, I'm not an elderly person, but say
you're getting there.
It's pretty close.
Working
here some days.
Maybe you'll get lucky. Okay.
So, what kinds of debts? Like say I have student loan debt.
Right.
Let's talk about typical debts. Maybe student loan debt, credit card debt. Maybe you owe on your house, and you have a car.
Right.
So you pass away.
Right.
And
all that is
you're elderly. What kinds of, say I'm in my 60s and I have some kids and I have those kinds of debts. What kinds of things are my children then responsible for?
None of them.
None of them.
Basically, it's your estate that's responsible for paying your debts.
Meaning?
So you die and you have a house. You die, you have, maybe a small IRA or a savings account, and all of those all of your creditors have a right to claim against those assets in order to pay, to get paid.
So that's really another reason that you should be thinking and talking about these kinds of things, because say your kids are thinking, oh, when mom and dad die, I can be counting on, some of this money from them, but if they haven't been planning and saying, oh, well, I have these debts that are going to have to be taken care of first, the kids could end up with nothing by the time the estate is settled.
Exactly.
I mean, if you have a car that needs to be finished paying for, your mortgage isn't, your 30-year mortgage isn't done.
Right.
Something.
All of that, all of your assets that, when you die are subject to the claims of your creditors. I mean, basically the way that works.
What was that, Rick? A tax? Okay, so say you have a federal tax debt upon death. Does that get leaned against your estate?
Exactly. That's what the state would call, or the federal government would call, a priority claim.
Interesting.
Which means that the state will, that our state probate law, it ranks the priority of who gets paid.
Okay.
The first is administrative expenses, second is taxes, third is, mortgages are, they're subject to being paid out of your estate, those sorts of things. So.
I believe we have Eileen on line 2. Eileen, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Thanks for calling. Where are you calling from?
Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay. And if you don't mind, would you mind telling us your age or your range? Where are you?
50.
You're in your
50s. Okay. And what's your question for us?
If you got other siblings, and can one sibling just go and file for power of attorney without letting anybody know?
Who decides power of attorney?
Okay, the person that decides power of attorney is the person that is making the power of attorney.
Okay.
So the older person walks into my office and says, they want to do estate planning, and we will talk to them about, okay, you need a power of attorney in place, you need healthcare powers of attorney, and we're going to say, who do you want to have as your power of attorney? Is it your spouse? It's a family member, a child, whoever it is. And then do you have a first priority, second priority, successor? That's the person that decides. Now, I guess what I'm hearing, what I'm hearing her say is that. One of her siblings, went to mom or whatever, or took mom to a lawyer, or downloaded a form from the internet and filled it out and said, Mom, sign this so that I'm your power of attorney. Now, is that a valid power of attorney? It may be. But ultimately, it's the person that makes the power of attorney that is the one that makes that decision.
Interesting.
Now, if she doesn't believe that her loved one, if it's mom or whoever it is, made the right choice, then maybe they need to have a family conversation. Or if she feels that mom was not
in the right state of mind,
exactly,
maybe to make
then
the decision.
maybe, at some point, depending upon what happens next, it could be they wind up in court, where somebody is named conservator for mom.
Interesting. A lot of interesting questions here. Tim Takis, an attorney in elder law, is with us all morning here. We know there's a couple of you still on hold. We will get to your questions coming up shortly. If you would like to call in, you have any questions for us, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-PLUS, and MorningLine will be right back.
If you want to shed the fat and sculpt your body to get that slim, sexy look of your dreams, then you need to stop working out.
Say what?
And start rocking out with Rockin' Body, the fun new body makeover system that was created by fitness expert and Insanity creator Sean T.
Rockin' Body combines dance and fitness in a fun new way so you can achieve insane weight loss.
I lost 30 pounds dancing.
Now you can tone and tighten your abs, shrink and shape your hips and thighs, and lift and firm your booty, all while you're just dancing.
I've lost 33 pounds. I feel sexy.
And now, for a limited time, the complete $80 Rockin' Body system is 75% off. That's right, Rockin' Body is only $19.95. We'll even upgrade you to express shipping free. Get the complete Rockin' Body system for only $19.95.
Call 1-800-757-8959 or order online at rockinbody.com. That's 1-800-757-8959.
Hi, Don Bruce with American Home Design. Do you realize in this simple glass of water, the chemicals that keep it safe are going into your body and on your skin? Find out what American Home Design customers are saying.
After having the Rain Soft test, I was shocked at what I saw.
When you see what's in yours and what it can be with Rain Soft, everybody needs to have their water tested.
This is what Rain Soft customers are saying. We no longer have a problem with chlorine. My 5-year-old doesn't have to use prescription lotion anymore. My eczema cleared up in 10 days.
I love when I shower with it. I use less soap, less shampoo. I enjoy cooking, and my food tastes better with Rain Soft water.
To not have the extra minerals and chemicals in the water is a big deal for me.
Our operators are standing by right now to take your call. If you call right now, we're going to give you a free water test. And to go along with it, we're going to give you dinner for 2. But you got to call right now.
It is Tuesday, April 19th. My name is Chris Conte. We are here with Tim Takis, who is an attorney in elder law. He has been joining us all morning. We've been getting a lot of questions, talking about everything from wills to taxes to powers of attorney. Tim, I believe that we have another caller on line 2. Oh, hit the wrong button. Gay, are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right.
And would you mind telling us where you're calling from?
I'm actually in Katie's, Kentucky.
Katie's, okay. And would you mind telling us your age?
I'm actually just over 71.
Just over 71, right. Okay. And what is your question for us?
Well, I have had, obviously, my name has gotten onto these mailing lists, and they keep trying to, well, they've been sending notices about Social Security benefits, and it has a return address, but no name. Mm-hmm. And then when I get inside, it's just like a postcard, and you're supposed to send your name back to them, and no telling what it's all about. I went to the library, pulled it up on the computer, and apparently it's the same. It's a scam to get people to buy life insurance, mm-hmm. and dozens of people on the internet have told, well, I'm getting the same stuff from Georgia, from North Carolina, from every state that you can think of. The second thing is that I'm also getting mail from a so-called, I guess, a lobby committee or something like that, National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, mm-hmm. and they claim I'm a member. Well, I've never signed up for them, but they keep sending me mail. I've never sent them money, and they keep saying that they're fighting for the COLAs and the Social Security increase and stuff like that. And I wonder, what are these people up to? Is it another scam?
So the latter. Let's start with the latter first, because you knew that name already.
Oh, I did, and I can just tell you that I had a client, still have a client. She's still alive, and her daughter came in, one day, about a year ago, and threw on the, on our table a stack. Well, I guess you can see maybe this high.
Up a little higher.
There we go.
There you go.
Probably about 6 inches high, and this was stuff that her mother had been getting in it's accumulation of about 6 weeks. her mother was sending money into those types of organizations.
Yeah.
They have P.O. boxes. They don't have street addresses, or they have a street address with a box number, which is just like basically a little locker or whatever it is. It's one of those mail services. There are no names attached, no persons that are attached to that. And what happens is that if you sign up for them once, you send them a little bit of money, then you start getting more and more and more. And that's what happened to this, our client.
Mm-hmm.
And she was sending hundreds of dollars, until her daughter had to intervene.
Yeah.
And 98% of or 99% of that people, they send those out. And people throw it away. But it's the other 1% that keeps them in business.
So what kind of thing can you look for to know that maybe something isn't legitimately from the IRS or Social Security, or what kinds of things, are there red flags, or is there someone you can ask or talk to or call and say, is this legit? Is this, it's outside of the organization that you get it from?
Sure.
What would your suggestion be?
I'm thinking about, who you would, I would say probably...
Or what are red flags?
Yeah, the red flags would be, there are organizations that you never heard of, but they sound really sort of vaguely, official. They have the sort of the buzzwords of, well, if you're an old person, who doesn't want to preserve Medicare and Social Security? Why shouldn't I give them money? And they're in red and white and blue envelopes. They are sort of filled with alarmist languages and whatever, but you don't know where the money is going for. They just say is start sending money in to protect, what these are for. Those are the kind of red flags. You throw that stuff away. Now, I think that, like if she's in the state of Kentucky, one of the things that she might want to have she might contact the Kentucky Attorney General's office, because they're very concerned about that, just like they are here in Tennessee. Right. You can call the Postmaster General, because people are using the mails, which is potentially a federal crime. Right. So those are the kind of things that people need to be.
Interesting.
The most important thing is not to reply to them, because then you're going to get bombarded.
Right. I believe we have Tony on line 4. Tony, where are you calling from?
Nashville.
Nashville, and how old are you?
I decline to answer that.
Okay.
I'm but I don't want to say that.
Okay.
What's your question?
You're an adult, right? Okay, good. Gotcha.
Because he's a pretty good understanding man, very wisdom, help a lot of people out. I understand that through the years. He's been very helpful to me also, to his advice. But the problem I got is, ever since I contacted AARP about some life insurance and other things, I've been bombarded by all these calls, messages, death insurance certificates. I think AARP probably sold me out.
So
I really believe that.
Sounds like the same problem that Dave's having. And I think unfortunately it happens with a lot of situations. I went to apply for a mortgage for a house recently. Yeah. And as soon as they know that your social is attached to something like that, right? You just get bombarded. Unfortunately,
yeah.
And it's really hard to stop.
Yes, yeah, and those are people that unfortunately they prey on the elderly. And is there a way to stop it? I think part of that might be is that you contact your postmaster to see what remedies are there. If you are being scammed, I mentioned just a moment ago that is a federal crime, because people are using the mails to solicit, which is federal. If you believe that you have been a victim of a crime, then you can literally call the state attorney general or call the Federal Bureau of the TBI, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, or the FBI. It is a national problem.
Right.
Literally is a national problem, and something really needs to be done about it.
I believe we have Mary on line 2. Mary, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Where are you calling from?
My call from Nashville.
From Nashville, okay. What's your question?
Yes, I have an 8-year-old. I'm married, and my husband refuses to go and work on a wheel. My biggest concern is, if anything happens to both of us, who will take care of my son? And I was wondering if that's something that I can go and do by myself without my husband.
Do you have a will right now? Do either of you have any kind of will?
No, we don't.
I think the short answer to that question is yes.
That she can go by herself.
She can go do it by herself, and I'll just sort of offer this suggestion to you, Mary.
You can send your husband in here and we'll tell him why you should really go probably do this together. But
I mean, it would be obviously preferable to...
Most people will not find out.
Right. It would be preferable to do it together, but, I think what you do is that you make your appointment with the attorney that you want to talk to, and have that conversation. And if you like the person, meaning like the lawyer, you don't have to be, you don't have to do like the first lawyer that.
Right.
But if you feel comfortable with that person, and then you go forward with, the lawyer helps you going forward with your estate planning. Then you're able to share that experience with your husband, who might go, that really wasn't so. That wasn't such a. But that wasn't so difficult.
Really though, what I'm hearing you say is that she should do this. Even if her husband isn't, because heaven forbid something happened to both of them, and then there's an 8-year-old there with
at least
no
they have
kind
something.
Of safety net.
Yes.
I think back to the example we were talking about with my friend whose father died in the plane crash.
Absolutely.
Her father had no will, and she's left in the lurch. To try and figure a lot of things out, and she was a 30-year-old woman. We're talking about an 8-year-old child.
Right.
Who knows?
Exactly.
What kinds of chaos
the issue there is that who's going to be the guardian for that child? Is that child are they going to inherit something?
And maybe that's maybe that's the way that she gets through to her husband, saying,
she can guilt him a little bit.
Well, the guardianship.
Absolutely.
Not money, guardianship.
The guardianship. Who's going to take care of our daughter?
If both of us pass away in a car accident, there's no paperwork, nothing that says who should be taking care of my daughter.
Is it going to be his? Is it going to be his parents? Is it going to be her parents? Is it going to be somebody else? Is the judge? See, that puts then who decides? The judge does. Do you want a judge to decide who's going to take care of your daughter, your 8-year-old daughter?
I hope she's DVRing this right now to show her husband.
She can. I think we're showing it later today, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but those are the kinds of things. Yeah. There are so many intricacies with these. It's not just, who gets what's left of my, retirement plan.
Right.
There are so many different levels.
Who's going to take care of our daughter?
Right.
And how are her needs going to be met? Is she going to, who's going to be trustee of the funds? Is it going to be somebody the court appoints? Is it going to be somebody they appoint? It's really about, and I realize that we're preaching here to the choir, for Mary, but at the same time, that unfortunately part of being an adult is really hard.
It is.
Don't you hate that?
I do.
It's like, wasn't it great when you were like 20 and you're
just in college, you have nothing to worry about.
You don't have to worry about. You become an adult and all this stuff,
debts.
and it's like and then worse, you have children. How did that happen? Now you got to deal with that.
Yeah.
But that's just part of being an adult, and unfortunately, it's one of the unfortunate parts. But still.
The gentleman who called in earlier was talking about getting bombarded because he went through AARP, but there was an interesting point he made there that I thought was worth mentioning. He was talking about life insurance. A lot of people still, for some reason, don't think they need life insurance, and we're talking about all these debts that people carry. And if you don't have, I guess there's 2 points to life insurance. A, if you don't have it, that's a big deal. B, you need to make sure that you're getting the right amount to cover the kinds of debts you have.
Yes, and that's again one of those things where our older people, if they're planning their estates, we have a lot of people that they still have life insurance, but sometimes we'll ask, it's like, well, why do you have this $10,000 policy that you're paying $20 every month for? It's like, well, I don't know. If they don't have it, if they don't know why they have it, part of it is, why do you think you need it?
Is it ever too late to get life insurance? Would you at any point?
I don't know. I guess that's probably that's the next ask the expert.
I believe we have some of your information in case people want to get in touch with you. Tim, if you want to take us through.
Okay. Yeah, over here you can see this our slide here. Call us at 824-2571 in Hendersonville, 866-222-3127. That's our toll-free number. So you can call that. And of course, as everybody winds up doing, they always check us out on the internet. So.
And does it cost anything to just have a conversation with you guys initially?
Usually, what we really want people to do is that you call the office. and talk, somebody will, tell us how you found us, and say, look, I saw Mr. Takis on, MorningLine or Open Line, and here's our situation. Maybe we can't help you, because it's maybe not in our area, or maybe like the lady from Katie's Kentucky's, look, we want you to know that we'll find you someplace to go.
Find someone. Tim, we appreciate you being here with us this morning.
Glad to be here.
It's been a great conversation. We want to also thank everyone who has been calling in all morning. Again, if you have any questions for Tim, more specific questions for Tim or his people, you can give him a call. And we appreciate you guys calling in this morning here on Morning Line. And we will be right back after this brief break.